3 minutes after 9 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. We had a segment this morning with Galen talking about weird laws in Canada, and one of them, I can't remember where it was, but you couldn't have more than 3.5 inches of water in your bathtub, and I'm imagining it was for water conservation purposes. I lived about half a year in Los Angeles, and I remember that was just a way of life. You had to really abide by the law, and I think they were able to tell by the meters outside the homes if you were actually abiding by the law or not. And even here in Florida, we have so much water here. If you fly over, I mean, you look down from an airplane, there's water everywhere, but yet water conservation is important to us as well. Robert Colen is here from On Top of the World. Robert is one of the managers over at On Top of the World, which, by the way, they're going to announce tomorrow that on Mars they found a 55-plus community. I'll just carry that joke for
But I'm bump.
And Phillip Hisey is Robert's guest. Phillip is the landscape manager for On Top of the World Communities, talking about water conservation. So good morning, Phillip.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see both of you. How you doing over there in Top? How's it going? I mean, are you surprised that there's a community on Mars?
I'm shocked.
So yeah, water conservation. You wouldn't think that that's an issue in a place where there's water everywhere. It seems like we've got water coming out of everything.
Well, water conservation is certainly important everywhere, and it's certainly important in Florida, and it's something that On Top of the World has really been focused on for at least the last 20 years. And one of the reasons why Phillip came in, and he's been such a leader in spearheading things like irrigation controls that conserve water. And you're talking about the bathtub. Bathtub and inside use of water is really limited. So it's kind of silly to say, okay, I only have 3 inches, when outside irrigation, at least in Florida, is where most of your
That's
water
probably the big one, right?
is something like 75% of your water use. Yeah.
Come on, I don't hear you. Now I hear you better. I had the wrong thing.
Yeah, it's 80% of the water bill typically is your irrigation usage. But like Robert said, the irrigation and water use and just sustainable practices have always been something that have been it's part of our mission statement with On Top of the World, and it's something we focus on. We've done several studies with homeowners. We're in a study right now with the University of Florida on conservation. And just doing a couple different things with that. We started at our Sanctuary Model Center, and the study takes into account some soil amendments. We were approached by the university through the Florida Turf Growers Association. Uh-huh. And the study basically takes the compost that a company called Life Soils up in Gainesville makes. It's inoculated with soil biota, and it's applied to the yard. It's tilled into a depth of 6 inches, and then there's other yards that we just did a regular tilling treatment. We didn't do anything special to that. And then another part of the study was just doing absolutely nothing, what we typically would do with any landscape install. And the university has finished that study up now. They're collecting their data and drafting the language that they would put out through the University of Florida IFAS, Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences. And we're actually starting phase 2 of the study. And in that sanctuary community, where we're taking about 30 homeowners and doing the same treatments in their yards and actually seeing what real world data would be instead of a plot or a study where everything's controlled, give it to the homeowners, and now let's see how we do that. The water management district that we're a part of, Southwest Florida Water Management District, has a specific liking to this study because they want to see what nitrate loading, that's a big issue in Marion County, as we know from springs protection and other things. But they want to see what the nitrate loading could be. Are they, by fixing one problem with conservation in the soil, are they adding a problem or creating a problem possibly with additional nitrates in the soil leaching through? So
do they look at the reclaimed water that you use for your golf courses too for this study?
That's not part of this study. This is all off of potable water here.
Oh, okay. But the reclaimed water helps aid in the water conservation?
Yes, reclaimed water is used for our common areas, for much of our common areas and all of our golf courses. Mm-hmm. So Andy Jorgensen, our golf course superintendent, I think he's possibly been on this. Andy's on top of it when it comes to water use with the golf courses, as you probably know.
So the reclaimed water, I mean, that must be a huge way of conserving water. Just you're using it again.
It is. It's a great way, but again, you're getting a water bill, and 80% of your water bill is irrigation usage. So you're only getting about 20% back to the water treatment plant. So for about, I think our water treatment plant produces about 400,000 gallons a day. which we'll use, in some areas we'll use over 1 million gallons a month in water. A golf course, for instance, could use, several million gallons if it wasn't managed correctly, or if it was super hot, or, Andy does his things with agronomics that he needs to water at certain times, and he uses the water as needed, as well as in the common areas and commercial landscapes. Those aren't watered, without any regard to the conservation, but you only get so much reuse out of all that water that's going into the house.
This is a little bit of a curveball, and I'm going to ask you to describe something that may be better with a visual, but can you help me understand the science of it? The water comes up from the aquifer, and does the aquifer level, like the water level underground, actually go lower as we use more of it? Is that what happens?
To be honest with you, I don't know. Without being a hydrologist, I don't know if that's...
It is like rivers, though, underground. So
that's how I'm imagining it, but I don't know.
I mean, if you've ever seen those movies or the videos when people go scuba diving underneath the aquifer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're talking about these rivers, and they flow from, basically from, they split off. So I know on our side of 75, it flows down to the Rainbow Springs area, and then that's where it starts to bubble up. Yeah, and then part of it flows to Silver Springs area.
Okay, so this is another science question then. So this is not about conservation as much as pollution. So if the nitrates seep through the ground to that aquifer, they end up in the Rainbow River in this case?
Yes, exactly, and that's essentially what happens. I think in the studies that the county has done, they have actually been able to synthesize out the nitrates to find out if it's fertilizer, if it's organic, or what it could be. But to answer your question about the level of the aquifer, I don't think the level actually goes down. It's the flow in the aquifer, the actual speed the water is moving through, and that's a lot of times when we see the reports, the basin levels, they're talking about flows, minimum flows, and I think they're talking about the actual flow, the speed of the water through the aquifer.
Well, does that water management determine what kind of landscaping that you do?
They don't, but the Water Management District, since about 2007, we've been involved. We got involved with St. Johns River Water Management District in 2007, which they're not even part of this side of I-75 where we're at, but they had the Florida Water Star program. So we got involved with that. We actually became a test plot for the Florida Water Star program in a water management district, with a water management district that wasn't even our water management district. So that kind of gives you an idea of our sustainability practices that we like to follow.
So when you establish rules, does it only apply to you guys, or does the average homeowner have to abide by certain rules?
Well, now with our installation practices, we install the landscapes and the indoor water components or water fixtures. We meet the Florida Water Star criteria, so the home is already built.
So that's not new construction, exactly.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
So we design it to meet a Water Star program, which is what Phillip's talking about, that really is water conservation friendly. And then when it comes to the Owners Association, if somebody's going to be making landscape changes to the original design, or if they're any kind of design, they have to follow what we call a 50-50 program, where it's 50% sod and then 50% landscape to reduce the amount of landscape or sod that uses irrigated water.
And I imagine that what your conclusions apply to all of us, even though yours are specifically for on top of the world. I would imagine that the science is the same here as it would be in the top of the world, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's good to know. We all can benefit from what you learn.
Well, even small things like changing the aerators out in your bathroom sink. It could be a 3-gallon per minute aerator if it's an older style house. You can put in a half-gallon per minute aerator, and you'd think the flow is going to be that much less. You can't brush your teeth, you can't wash your hands, and it's really no difference. The water's still there. You really ought to look at it and see if it's something you could do as a homeowner for water savings.
So what are the homeowners' rules about watering and maintaining their gardens and their grass?
So the Southwest Florida Water Management District gives you specific data or specific days that you can water based on daylight savings time.
That applies to everybody in Marion County.
That's everybody. If you're St. Johns River Water Management District, they have their own set of criteria. Marion County actually entered an interlocal agreement. I want to say it was in 2008. There's an irrigation ordinance in Marion County, and that interlocal agreement basically states that everybody in Marion County would follow the St. Johns River Water Management District guidelines, because a lot of the data that we get on our TV that says, think twice or 1 day a week watering, it comes from the Orlando market. The Orlando market is St. Johns River Water Management District. So the people on the west side of 75 were getting wrong data.
Oh, really? So a lot of it doesn't apply to us.
Exactly. So if you're on the west side of 75, it didn't apply to you, but you were getting that information. So when Swift Mud was on a 1 day per week watering restriction and St. John's was on a 2 days per week,
Oh, wow.
people were getting confused. So Marion County entered that interlocal agreement, and now everybody follows St. John's River when it's across the county. But if there is a specific shortage in the Swift Mud area, the Southwest Florida Water Management District, then that will supersede for those areas.
So that depends the kind of plants you plant then.
Well, and if you're doing Florida-friendly landscaping, which is a practice we follow, your plant material and the type of irrigation you install. If you're installing drip irrigation on your shrubs, which we do, the efficiency of that system and the health of the plants that you get from that efficiency is far more superior than an overhead irrigation system like you would typically see outside.
Oh.
Does the price of water go up if we reach a certain threshold?
Yeah, so there's, I have at my house on the southeast side of town, we have Marion County Utilities. We have an inverted rate structure is what it's called, on top of the world through the Bay Laurel Water Management, or Bay Laurel Center CDD. They have an inverted rate structure, so it's in increments. I think 7,500 gallons, the first 7,500 gallons cost you X, 7,501 gallons to 15,000 gallons costs you another price, and as it goes up, the price goes up. So,
oh, wow.
So
wow.
it's a conservation structure that the Water Management District likes to see.
So you have to maintain the water meters too.
Yeah, the Bay Laurel is totally separate. That's a totally separate governmental entity. Bay Laurel Center. Is it Bay Laurel Center Community Development District?
Bay Laurel
is
Center
what it is.
Community, yep.
And it's managed. It's a governmental entity that's managed. I don't know enough about it to speak intelligently, so I won't.
We brought Brian on before from Bay Laurel, and I can bring him back again if you have more questions about hydrology or the aquifer or that kind of things. But yeah.
So what is the rule about watering your lawn or your garden with an underground drip thing? What is that? There's a for lack of a better way to ask this, it's like a hose with holes in it, and it's buried underground. Is that regulated the same way as the above ground?
That's a great question, and actually through the Water Management District, it's not regulated. Drip irrigation system, you can water any day of the week. The way the regulation.
Because there's no way to know, I guess.
There's no way to know, but it's a lot more efficient than a typical overhead irrigation system.
So do you do that? I mean,
no, we still follow the twice per week watering restrictions with ours. And we don't break out when we set a homeowner's irrigation system up. We set them up to water under best management practices. We don't want to water additionally if you don't need it. We want to create healthy plants and water seeking plants, not plants that are sitting in water or really happy in the ground, sitting where they're at. We want them to thrive and push out new roots.
Larry, one of the interesting things about all this focus on conservation is that a lot of the irrigation companies, I think Hunter in particular we use, has really focused on new technologies that you can even run from your cell phone on running your irrigation.
Really?
Phil can talk about that because that's one of the things that we've really moved everything to for new construction.
Yeah, we began using the HydroWise system with our new models and all new homes built after that, and it's really unique because yes, it can be ran from your cell phone. You have a smartphone, it's hooked to the Wi-Fi technology in your house. It's cloud-based technology, so you would go to an app-based an app on your iPhone, smartphone, whatever it is, and you can set the phone up. But the interesting parts of it, the past couple weeks we've had a lot of rain, and you can set watering triggers based on rainfall. So the way we set ours up, if it's an 80% chance of rain, like today I think is a 95% chance of rain. If it was supposed to water last night, it saw in the forecast that today's a 95% chance of rain, and it didn't water last night.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
Really?
It's also got watering triggers in it that it registers the rainfall data from the local weather station, or if you wanted to put your own weather station in, that you can set a watering trigger up based on how much rainfall you got. So we have ours set at 7/10 of an inch. So at 7/10 of an inch of rainfall that day, it won't water the following day.
Oh, wow. That's
if you
amazing.
get over an inch, and then you have another watering trigger that if you have an inch and a half of rainfall during the past 7 days, it won't water that day. So we actually installed those on our sanctuary models to test them out, and we found during the rainy season, we were saving 30,000 gallons a month on a house, 25,000 gallons a month on a house.
Really?
And
Wow.
people say, wow, that's a lot of water. But when you're looking at a typical lot, an 80 by 120 lot with a 3,000 square foot house, that's really not that much
Is that
water.
right? See, it sounds like a lot, though, doesn't it? when
Yeah,
you
it
say
sounds
that?
like a lot, but when you and that's just irrigation usage. You add and that may be high, but looking at the data and thinking back to what it was, it may have been 20,000 gallons that we were saving.
Phillip Hisey and Robert Colen are our guests from On Top of the World. Phillip is the landscape manager over there. Robert is one of the managers of the whole community. We do have a phone call. Gentlemen, if you'll put your headsets on, you'll be able to hear the caller. Give you a chance to do that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning. Thank you for calling in, for waiting. You're on the air.
Good morning, gentlemen. I'm curious about how that would actually work for somebody that moves into one of your 55-plus communities, where you guys take care of all the maintenance. I would assume that would be the watering of the lawn areas and like that. Now, is that any part of the responsibility of the homeowner, or is that going to be taken care of also with your system?
And that's a great question. And there's different areas in On Top of the World where On Top of the World manages the irrigation system for the homeowners. And then the single-family structures that are built, the homeowner still has the control of the irrigation system. So we would still install the HydroWise to where a homeowner could check their irrigation system. We have a population of snowbirds at On Top of the World, and with this irrigation system, they can be at their house in Kentucky and look at the irrigation system, and additionally with that irrigation system there's a master valve and a flow meter on there, so they get alarms if there's an excess of usage. The master valve tells them if the system's on or off. The flow meter tells them how many gallons per minute they're using. So to answer your question, it's yes and no, it just depends on where you buy.
Well, what I'm getting at is I'm a senior citizen, and I would like to know, I'm looking at your homes where the maintenance is 100% included in the HOA fee. Would that be part of that maintenance?
Again, it depends on where you buy.
So what? And it's a great question. I see what you're saying. So if you're buying in the new single-family home section, what you're going to get is you're going to have to maintain that. If you're looking at buying like a resale where there are villas where multiple houses are together, where On Top of the World actually maintains the irrigation, then that wouldn't be included in that, because On Top of the World is managing that irrigation, and you're not even paying a water bill on that specific irrigation meter, because it's coming through one meter and it's watering 15 houses or 7 houses at one time. So that's a whole different scenario. What Philip's talking about are single-family houses, in particular the new houses that we have in our maintenance-free section, but where the homeowner still is responsible for I guess it's maintaining or managing their irrigation flow. And we do monitor that for them. We do come out, and if there is, like, it's dry or they're not watering enough, we'll alert them to the fact that your sod is about to expire.
Yeah, but if you have a sprinkler system and all that, that can be programmed, can it? Or can it not?
Yes, it can be programmed by the homeowner in the single-family homes.
Well, anyway, thank you very much, and look forward to visiting you guys soon.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Yeah, I love the fact that you've kind of worked it out in a scientific way, and it makes it easier for the homeowner, it sounds like. I mean, all we have to do is kind of pay attention to what the rules are and then just abide by them, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
But there is a way that if we wanted to, let's say we wanted to water more, even though it's against the rules, we could still do it.
Right. So Larry, for example, if you were adding, you had lost some sod, it died or whatever, it burned, and you were putting new sod down, or if you were ripping something up and then putting new plants down, and you were going to change the watering, of course, you would be able to modify your watering habits for that period of time till it grows in.
Right, and you suggest that you pay extra. That's all,
right.
Right. Okay. And is it common? I mean, do you see that a lot? Do a lot of people end up doing that?
Repairing grass. And
yeah.
It really is, and the first 3 to 5 years of establishment for a yard are pretty crucial. And you see some people that water correctly and water per the times that we give them to water by. And again, at the University of Florida, we follow a lot of their best management practices, the BMPs. They recommend a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch every time you water. If you look at the numbers we give homeowners to water by, and if they reduce those numbers, well, they may only be putting out a fraction of that. Instead of a 1/2 inch minimum, they're putting out 3/10 of an inch. And so that can start to show itself in that we see it, unfortunately we do see it with homeowners that want to reduce their water bill, but then you go out there and investigate the irrigation system, you look at their run times, and you explain their yard is possibly stressing out and dying because they're not watering enough. So
in the larger picture, maybe the whole state even, or just the central part of the state, is the water level, again, with the aquifer, being greatly affected by the increasing population? It's got to be something.
There's a report. There was the Florida 2070 report that was done by the Thousand Friends of Florida. And I actually sit on a board with the FNGLA, the Florida Nursery Growers and Landscape Association, and we have a sub-task force called the Irrigation Committee. And we're in the process of writing language to submit to the state for irrigation language on proper irrigation system installs, using proper equipment. The Department of Environmental Protection has language in their documents that says that they would review this language and modify it, and we're giving them some additional language to work with.
And there was talk some years ago of South Florida needing water, and the proposal to pump it from here, from Rainbow Springs. To me, if they did that, it would lower everything. It would lower what you have underneath the houses and on top of the world.
Yeah. It could. And again, I'm not a hydrologist. You would only think it would only make sense. You only have so much water in the aquifer to begin with. So if you're taking it, where's it coming to fill it back up?
Is on your website, do you have maybe the rules, or is it updated on a daily or a monthly basis or something, so that like if I was a resident there, I would say, well, what do I need to know? Is it posted somewhere?
Yeah, so we have the on top of the world info, or otoinfo.com, that homeowners can go to check the landscape criteria, the community standards. They can look at there. You can also go to On Top of the World News. I have a newspaper article in the month of June talking about the study we did.
Oh, okay.
But they can go there and catch up on different data, and when the water restrictions are changing from daylight savings time to Eastern Standard Time, there's a change in water restrictions. So they can go to the websites and see that.
But there's no water police, right? There's nobody coming up to your driveway and saying, "Hey, you're washing your car again."
Well, I would tell you that we do have an enforcement. The Owners Association does enforce to some extent. Like on the houses where we maintain the water, where it's included. What we do is if we get notices if there's high water use. Yesterday, for example, I even went out to a house where we got a notice of 120,000 gallons used in 1 month on a small house.
Wow.
So it's really a sign that there's some kind of major leak going on. Of course,
that's what I was wondering. Yeah, maybe.
Nobody was living in the house incidentally.
Oh my gosh! Okay.
We looked in the windows, which I'll probably get in trouble for saying that. but there's no signs of flooding, so it's probably a toilet just constantly flowing.
Oh yeah.
But so we were authorized to shut off the water to the house until such time we got a hold of the homeowner. But
okay. And again, this is a science question, but I often wondered if you pull the water up from the aquifer and then water your lawn, and it trickles down to the aquifer, isn't it the 50-50? You take it, you put it back, isn't it?
Again, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it takes some time to get back down to the aquifer. You have evaporation as well. You have the plants using some of it. So it's not 100%, what you put on it on the yard is going 100% down into the aquifer. It's being used up.
Well, you've got your act together, Robert. I just love everything you do over there. I'm going to move there one day.
Yes, you will.
One of these days, I'll have my little golf cart. I said that to Robin the other day. I don't want a car anymore. I just want a golf cart. I'll just tool around top of the world.
Go up to the Publix in your golf cart, get a pizza in your golf cart.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll get one of those that looks like a Mercedes. Or just one of those. Do you want to give out any contact information?
Well, we have on top of the world communities.com, and then we have just come out and visit us at we're off 200 on Southwest. We're off of Southwest 200 on around 99th Street Road is the sales office.
So Phillip, could somebody contact you and ask you about the I guess the smart technology, so you could, because I love what you said, that the weather report says it's going to rain tomorrow, so we won't water the lawn tonight. Is that something that anybody can get? Yeah,
anybody can get that through Site One Landscape Supply carries the irrigation timer. They can put them in contact, and also the manufacturer, Hunter Industries. If a homeowner wanted to contact Hunter and find out more information, that number is 1-800-733-2823, and it comes right to a voice prompt, and you can get information based on the system from that.
It's a fascinating topic, more than you realize when you just see the words water conservation. You don't realize how much is actually involved with it, right?
Yeah.
something you do on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
Wow. So you're careful at home when you drink your water? So
Well, I have the HydroWise system at my house, actually, and it's lowered my water bill quite a bit. So.
Is that right? Mm-hmm. Oh, so well, that's good to know. There's the incentive right there.
Yes.
It'll lower the bill.
It lowers the bill. It does. It helps.
Yeah. Robert, thank you for coming in as always.
Thank you.
Phillip, good to
Thank
see you
you.
again.
Good seeing you too.
We will take a little break. We'll be right back. You're listening to The Source, WOCA Ocala.
Wilkerson here, your Verizon representative with news that will hum your car, make it smart and safe. How? With the new Hum device by Verizon. You can rest assured you're never alone. Flat tire? Lost? Accident? For $10 a month, Hum by Verizon has you covered. And I will come to you in Marion County to install the Hum for free. Time to call me at 352-528-0020. Are you ready to hum along? Call 352-528-0020.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM, The Source.
Fox News Radio. I'm Lillian Wu. Results keep coming in from Tuesday's primaries in 8 states.
In Montana, Democratic incumbent Senator John Tester will face GOP State Auditor Matt Rosendale in November.
John Tester is vulnerable, and President Trump has made winning Montana a priority.
Senator Tester drew the president's ire when he revealed allegations against his pick to lead the Veterans Affairs Department.
Fox's Rachel Sutherland. One of the women who won big last night, a Democratic former Navy pilot running for a House seat in New Jersey.
In New Mexico, Deb Haaland could become the first female Native American in Congress after winning the first congressional district primary.
And a mobile phone maker in China claims it never collected or stored Facebook user data. This after the social media network admitted